Another pro tip. So one thing that you guys may or may not have struggled with, and I would hope that you're all familiar with the lens length at this stage, but how many of you could use a refresher on lens length? Just one? Lens length? The fact that you asked that means you probably need one. Okay, so anyway, what you guys probably ran into, let me kind of reset my scene here. So lens length is a term related to photography, and it has to do with how wide of a lens angle you're getting your image in. And so a smaller lens length is going to have basically like a wider focal length. So it creates kind of like a ball lens or like a fisheye kind of effect without the warping, just because this is pure geometrical projection, not an actual bending of light. Okay, so that's a very significant distinction, okay? Have you guys in your other classes done any hand drawing in two-point perspective at all? One or two of you? Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. So you understand that there's a focal degree of like 60 degrees that you can actually project to before it starts to get distorted, right? So that whole construct is really just it's really just a convention, okay? It's not any sort of physical science. It's actually not real, okay, if that makes any sense. It's a convention for representing what we see in our eyes. But what we see in our eyes is actually bent light. So basically, this is a mathematical representation of that. So it's not one-to-one. So what happens is, if you're kind of looking at your building, let's pretend this is like the entry to a house or something like that. You can actually change your lens length to simulate that effect, right? You can accentuate whether it's a ball lens or like a fisheye sort of thing, just by lowering the lens length. So if I lower it to like a 35, this is a little closer to a 35 millimeter is what people say is closest to what the human eye sees. Okay. But for most digital projection, you use 50 just because it's easier to view and understand. But you probably didn't really realize much of a difference between 50 and 35, right? But once you go down, the difference is actually kind of exponentially different. If you get inside of it like that, the space tends to sort of stretch backwards at 22, or at 15, or at 10. So this is what I'm referring to when I say that it gets distorted. Okay, this is not real anymore, nor can it really be perceived as real anymore. So this is something that's used as kind of like a representational technique. Zaha Hadid is a big fan of, or was a big fan of this kind of projection, just really accentuating the geometry of the architecture and making it something totally surreal. So anyway, this is something that you guys have at your disposal. And the reason I'm bringing it up to you is because when you find yourself in the standard Rhino projection, which is 50, and you get yourself into your space, and if you look at it in plan, my entry and exit are actually really close to one another. Yours might not be. So once you get inside the space, you're going to realize that it's really kind of tiny. This is all I can see. I can barely fit those two in there. So you employ your photographic techniques in order to be able to represent the space the way you desire. Does that make sense? So, and it's not cheating or anything, it's just showing it in a different way, right? How many of you guys have searched for an apartment in the last year? Nobody's been apartment searching? Oh man, you guys are missing out on some of the world's greatest marketing ploys. What's that? Yeah, they do. But oftentimes you'll see that those 360 cameras and stuff, they're all very like ball lensed. They have a very low lens length or wide angle because it makes the space look bigger, right? So I've now welcomed you into this world. So once you start looking at apartments, you're gonna pick it out like that. You're gonna be like, oh, they're cheating. They're making it look. And then once you go visit it, you'll really realize that it is that much smaller. In fact, maybe we'll kind of dig some up and I'll show you and point it out to you. But anyway, so that's a tool that's at your disposal. So on this one, I actually went down to a 22, which is kind of a severe exaggeration of the space. But you see it all the time, especially in skateboarding videos. Okay. What questions do you have about that? So that's lens length. All right.